Welcome back. This is Terry Miller with Terry's Tidbits, and today we are continuing our series on transitioning from Process Builder to Lightning Flow. Today we're looking at updating records, and we're doing that in a two-part series of videos. The first video we looked at how we update records in the same object that triggered the flow. And in this video, we are looking at how do we update records in a different object than the one that triggered our flow. Welcome to the second half in the series of updating records. This is part of an 8-part series of learning to transition from Process Builder to Lightning Flow. And in today's video, we are looking at updating records that are related to the record that triggered our flow. So again, looking at the cheat sheet as our starting point, we have Process Builder pictures on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, we have what that same process looks like in a record trigger flow. So that is our cheat sheet for today. You can download those at terrystidbits.com, as well as see the blog posting about this particular topic. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's review the Process Builder first. And we're going to look at this update address as our example for today's video. It simply says for our decision that if the account update all contacts address, which is a custom field checkbox on the account object, if that is set to true, then we want to update our contact records so that the mailing address on the contact matches that of the billing address on the account. Okay, so that is what we're going to be working to achieve today in Flow. Now, if we jump over to Flow, just note here that we are now going to use an after trigger. In the before trigger, we don't have the ability to update other records. We can only update the record that triggered the flow on the before side. So we are jumping now to an after record trigger flow. And you can see that I've got my decision here. And it simply says that if the account update all contact address, that checkbox we talked about, equals true, then we're going to go down the update contact address path. If it's not, we will go down the don't update the address path. And so you can see those two paths here. So let's go ahead and click on our little plus sign to add our elements. And you'll see that these are different than what we had on the before side. We've got a lot more options here. We can create records, update records, get, delete records. We've also got actions up here. We're going to talk about some of these in some future videos. And you might be thinking, well, since we used an assignment in the before trigger when we were updating a record that triggered the flow, should I use an assignment in the after? Well, you can, but for our purposes today, I'm going to not do an assignment first. What you could do, and this is really more of an advanced topic, you could define the record that you want to do your update to using an assignment, but we're going to skip that just because it adds a layer of complexity that we don't need for this particular example. I'm just going to simply scroll down to the update records. The new record element requires us to give it a name, very similar to Process Builder. You have to name it, what you're trying to do here. So we're going to simply call this update addresses. And then the second part of our screen is a question that we need to answer. How do we find the records that we need to update? Now in Process Builder, they made this really, really easy, but it also is fairly limiting on what we can do. In Process Builder, Let's just do a quick new update record, and you'll see what I mean here. So let's give it a name. We'll just call it test. And it asks us that same type of question right here. We wanted to select a related record, and you might just simply put in contacts. And it took care of all of that logic behind the scenes for us. It knows that all of the contacts related to the record that we're dealing with is what we're talking about. In Flow, we have to define that, and we get to define it because this has more capability than just related records. So we're going to switch from the ID. We're going to use this specific conditions to identify records. And the first thing it does is ask us, what object do you want to update? In our use case, we are updating contacts. And then we have to define how do we find those contact records. Again, Process Builder made this really, really easy. Flow, it's still easy. It's just you have to tell it what you want it to do. So here's our conditions. Think of this kind of like a report filter or a list view filter, because that's really all it is. We're just narrowing down the records that we want to update. So we're going to say we're on the contact object, the account ID equals, and you remember $record? That's down here. $record is our friend, where the $record account ID equals the contact ID. So this is going to update all the contacts related to the account record. And then we're simply assigning values to our fields. So let's take and look at city. We want our mailing city. Let's just add a few more of these. We want country. Let's see if I can get these all alphabetically. I think it's postal, and then state, and finally street. Okay, so those are the fields that I want to update. Hopefully I got them all. Street, city, state, zip, country. Yes, I think that's right. All right, and I'm going to set those to values that are on my account record, which is the $record, city, and I'm going to use the billing address. You don't have to have these alphabetically. I do it just because it's just the way my brain works. Maybe I'm a little OCD in that fashion. I just like things to be in order, because when I come back to these records and look, I tend to kind of scan down the list of the fields, and it's just easy if they're alphabetically organized for us. They will get out of order. It really doesn't matter. Again, it's just kind of my little nuance, I guess, that I have. And state. All right, let's see if I got those all right. City to city, billing, country, country, postal to postal, state, and street. All right, very good. So that's all there is to updating a record on a different object. You select your element, your update address element, or update records, and you define how we go about finding that record, and you fill out the values that you need to set. And it's that simple. Save your flow, activate it, give it a test, and hopefully all works well. Be sure to check out terrystidbits.com for the blog posting on this. It goes into a little bit more detail on some aspects of this process. And remember, this is just part of an 8-part series on transitioning from Process Builder to Flow. I hope that you find the video helpful. If you do, please subscribe, give it a like. I appreciate the feedback that you're giving me as well. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great rest of your day.